Hey, welcome to another episode of Paul's Treehouse. My name is Paul Siegel, and today I thought I'd talk about diversity and sort of the language of hate that is being spread across social media and media in general. I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. What inspired me to talk about this is that I got an email yesterday from someone who I consider to be a close friend, telling me that I had no business talking about race, not race, but privilege as a white person. I found those remarks really sad to hear someone who I consider to be a friend, first of all, viewing me within the category of my race, and furthermore, making a statement that because I was of this category, that I had no business talking about a particular topic, which I found was I consider that to be a very, if that's considered to be okay to say things like that, then the world is in a really bad place, especially from someone who I, respect. This person is a really intelligent individual, and someone who I admire and I look up to. But these remarks really hurt me. And what was odd is that video, if you watched it, I didn't. The topic wasn't really at all about race. It was about the privileges that we have as human beings. I was talking about things that we all have, and how we often don't really realize how wonderful the life is that we've inherited, not just from our own immediate ancestors, but from our ancestors dating back tens of thousands of years. I brought up for example, I brought up pottery as a technology that was created over 20,000 years ago, as far as we can tell. But it's been adopted, and we've inherited it, and we've taken it, and we've used it. And whenever there's been some sort of advancement in the history of humankind, it's been taken. Some civilization has adopted it, has used it, has copied it, has replicated it, and because of these advancements that we make and that we pass on to future generations, we're able to save time in some areas, so we don't have to create these things again. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can invent something else completely. And it's been, I think, a kind of a dangerous trend of the human race, because the new generation will have things that we didn't. I can say that even just when comparing myself and my own parents, and that's just a 20-year difference, right? And I can compare what my kids have to what I have. And what ends up happening, because we inherit these things, like my kids grew up with internet and tablets and touchscreens, because we have these things, we don't value them nearly as much as those of us who had a whole childhood without them, and those things were only introduced in our adult life. And I think over time we've taken so many things for granted, and that's essentially what that video was about. Anyway, so there's been a lot of talk lately about diversity, and things like diversity is our strength. We should welcome other people. We should embrace people of different races, different religions. Before I go any further, it makes me sick to my stomach to think about people in terms of a category. I just want to think about people as people, just humans. That's how that's the kind of person I am. And in fact, it doesn't really matter. Economic status doesn't matter at all to me. I can engage with a homeless person in conversation with the same amount of intimacy as I could with the CEO of a company. I'm one of those people, and this probably doesn't help me in my career, in that when I meet someone who's of high status, I don't change, my demeanor doesn't change with them. I'll be the same way with talking to someone who could give me a job versus someone who I've met on the street. That's just the kind of person I am. And it doesn't matter what shade of skin color they have, whether they're male or female or whatever. It doesn't matter. I just see people as people, and I love people. It's something that has always been true about me. I'm incredibly curious. I always want to learn about. I especially love people who are different than me, and who either think differently or come from a different background. They have a different religion, or they're dressed in interesting ways. They live a life a certain way. I hate talking about myself, but I love to learn from other people. And so the more questions, the more inspired I am to ask questions about you, the more intrigued I'm going to be by the person. And so this categorization, white, black, they're kind of infantile in my opinion. Even if you look at it from a scientific point of view, it's very infantile to group people in these categories, because there really is no category, even from a scientific point of view. If you look at just the continent of Africa and you compare one nation next to another neighboring nation in the African continent, the genetic diversity between, let's say, Nigerians and South Africans, not that they're neighbors, but the genetic diversity, the distance between the genes in those races is far greater than any two white people you could pick on the planet. And so to put an entire group of skin coloration and call it black is so dumb, and it's so ignorant. It really is. It's ignorant, because you'd have to come up with hundreds of categories if you really wanted to start to in a reasonable way categorize people in a way that's helpful, like in terms of medicine and science and things like that, where you really have to pay attention to genetic tendencies in order to monitor for certain diseases and things like that. If you really wanted to be helpful with the categorization of people, you'd have to break it up into the hundreds, because the genetic diversity is such, especially in Africa. And it makes sense, because that's where we all come from. All the human races stem from there. And so that is the birthplace of humanity. And so all of us are present still in Africa. And so I think it's just not a good thing to be categorizing people. I'd rather just see people as human. I think that is the best category, and it's one that everybody fits into, no matter what their skin color is, their economic status, whether they have some sort of disability, whether they don't conform to some sort of gender norm. It doesn't matter. Everybody's human. And to start talking about people in terms of categories, and to go out and champion for a category of people, or to have a pride parade for a category of people, these things actually don't bring us together. They divide us. Because what you're doing is you're reinforcing the categorization of humans into groups, which is another way of saying categorizing people into tribes. And when you categorize people into tribes, you create a form of segregation, and you build walls. You reinforce these walls. And the walls are essentially like invisible dividers that say, you belong to this category, you belong to this category. Please check this box if you belong to that category, so that we can treat you as belonging to this category. And all that does, I promise you, that is a language of hate. Whenever you categorize people in a certain way, that is, in my opinion, true hate speech. That is the true hate speech, because it's a language that will eventually lead to hateful outcomes. And so I don't like it. I really, the language and the way in which they talk about it is only creating a quilted society rather than an interwoven and integrated society. it's not so much about us coming together. It's more about us being together with walls built between us. And it's sickening. I don't know if I'm alone in this. Well, it feels like it because I get reactions like that email I got the other day. People who are like champions, claim to be championing for others, but really what they're doing is they're building walls of division between different groups of people. And so I'd really like to encourage anybody who's listening to this to not fall into that trap and to call people on their bullshit when you come across it like this. Again, I don't like the idea of there being groups of people. I just like the idea of there being people and humans. So if you have picked up on this, let me know in the comments. Sometimes it feels like I'm in another planet, and I try to explain these things to people, and I get these blank stares, or usually they just get angry and combative, and I think it's because whatever ideology is fueling their behavior gets threatened in that moment. So anyway, those are some things I wanted to share. If you have any thoughts, leave it in the comments. Let's try to have a united, interwoven, integrated society, not one that is quilted and broken up into categories. Let's just celebrate being human. I think that is a good message worth sharing. And if you agree, share this video, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye.